Noida in India would birth one of the biggest worldwide whodunit cases of murder the world and media had ever seen. Two people end up dead. It's like a game of Cluedo. Who was it? Was it Professor Plum, Colonel Mustard, Mrs. Peacock? What the hell happened? Who was it? Let's take a look, shall we? Noida, which is short for the New Okhla Industrial Development Authority, is a planned city in the Gautam Budh Nagar district of the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. And I know you're thinking right now, what the fuck is a planned city? Well, don't worry, I got you. As the name suggests, a planned city is a new community that has been carefully planned and constructed on undeveloped land. Basically, like a new house in a starter block getting built, just on a whole other level. This shit is on steroids. It's literally building a new city from the ground up. Noida has a population of around 637,272. Well, that was in 2011, so it might be a bit higher, a bit lower, give or take. Amongst these 637,000 people were the Talwar family. Dr. Rajesh Talwar and Dr. Nipur Talwar were both dentists who practiced together out of their clinic in Sector 27 of Noida. Rajesh also taught at the ITS Dental College in Greater Noida. Oh, so they're in their bag like that. The two dentists had a child, Aarushi Talwar, who was born on the 24th of May 1994. She attended the Delhi public school. Aarushi Talwar was on her phone a lot, just like every other teen, and it was typically up on it chatting to her friends after midnight each night. So when her friend Anmol couldn't get through to her cell phone at around midnight, he knew something wasn't right. Arushi's phone was inactive after 9:10 PM, a big switch up for someone who is typically on it all night after midnight. Anmol then texts his friend, concerned, at around 12:30 AM, but the phone wasn't just inactive, it was switched off completely, and the text never delivered. On that same night of the 15th, the Talwars got home from work at 9:30 PM, having dinner with her daughter and giving her a new digital camera. Little did she know that this digital camera, for her birthday, would be used to snap the last ever photo of her alive. The housemaid for the house in Noida Sector 25 arrived for work as usual. However, things weren't just like usual. Bharti, the housemaid, rang the doorbell to get let inside the apartment. The gate was locked from the outside and she would usually be let in by Banjade, who was another servant. However, this time he was nowhere to be seen. After another 3 rings, he would be thrown down a set of keys, not from Banjade however, but by Arushi's mother, Nipur. So where the hell was Banjade, and why was Nipur up at this time? They were known to sleep in on the mornings since they worked evening shifts at the clinic. 2 things that are already sus, and this is just the beginning. Upon entering the house, she seen both of the parents awake in their daughter's room, crying. They then said, "Look at what Hemraj, the missing servant, has done." Next thing she noticed was 13-year-old Aarushi Talwar in a puddle of blood, after being bludgeoned, then having her throat slit by a kukri knife. Bharti rushed to the neighbours to get some medical assistance, however it was a lost cause, as Aarushi Talwar was already dead at this point. Both parents claimed that they didn't hear a thing when the murder took place. The AC and closed door blocked out all sound coming from their daughter's room. I can't imagine there were a lot of pretty noises coming from their daughter's room, and I can guarantee they weren't quiet either. That is some good ass AC. Police arrive at 7:15 AM. They walk into the property and there's already 15 fucking people in the living room and 6 in the master bedroom that the Talwars had all called themselves. Now, I'm not any Steve Arnott, although I wish I was, but I know a thing about crime scenes and how vital evidence is, especially the importance and preservation of DNA that's left on the scene. Shout out Line of Duty though, if you've not seen it, you probably should. The small party worth of people that the Talwars had for some reason or other invited to their house made the 28 fingerprint samples that the police lifted from the crime scene smudged and useless. Now that's anomaly number 3. Why in the fuck would you phone a squadron of people to your house when you've just found your daughter dead? Can you see why things start to get messy? And we ain't even at the fucking trial yet. While the police were there, Rajesh told the police not to open the locked terrace door. Now if there was a time you'd open the locked terrace door, it was now. Like, come on to fuck. I'm not even a policeman, And I know that's the first place I'd be looking if someone told me not to look. Like, worst of all, the police didn't check it at their request. I generally think I'd make a better policeman, and that's anomaly number 4. He then offered them 25,000 rupees, roughly 365 American dollars, to track down Banjade, the missing servant, emphasising the fact that they thought he was a culprit from the murder. He was missing. It makes sense, doesn't it? Well, there was just one slight problem with that theory. Doctors arrived at the Talwar household to check on the obviously distraught parents. Upon arrival, they realised that there was bloodstains on the handle of the locked terrace door, as well as bloody footmarks on the floor and bloodstains on the staircase. When Rajesh was asked for the keys, he didn't give them to the police and instead went inside to hide all day after noticing the blood on the handle, meaning the police couldn't access the terrace. I mean, what in the fuck is going on here? Like, really? It defies belief. I'm done counting anomalies because I'd lose count, but let me know how many you pick up in the comments from this point on. It was with good reason that Rajesh didn't want the police scouting about the balcony, as on the 17th of May 2008, Banjade's dead body was found in the balcony, decomposing, after the police eventually broke the lock. That's the one prime suspect who the parents emphasised was the killer, dead, as well as the victim. I wonder who else was on the property at that time who would have been able to kill, because they sure as hell didn't kill each other. Oh yeah, that's right, both the parents. They purposely hid a body from the police already. What else did they have to hide? Why would they feel the need to hide the dead servant's body in the balcony? Why would they do that? They clearly knew he was there if they wouldn't let the police in and told them not to go in there. Well, as I say, if the shoe fits. Arushi's bedroom door was always locked at bedtime and the keys kept on her mother's bedside table. So who was theoretically the only people to have access to Arushi's bedroom? Her own father and her own mother. Well, unless someone snuck in past the pair of them without waking them up. I suppose the AC was pretty loud after all. Napur later told the police she couldn't remember if she locked the bedroom door that night or not. Real coincidence. Evidence showed clearly that both of the bodies were moved. The new theory was that once Banjade was dumped on the terrace in a bedsheet, that the killers returned to the house and drank whiskey. What? Now, I'm Scottish, don't get me wrong, I love whiskey, and I'm not going to get up in here and say I blame them for going back in for a wee nip of grouse on the rocks or some hay club, but if you're a killer, the last thing you'd be doing would be hanging around the crime scene for a swally. Shit makes no sense. I'd be adios out of there, not leaving more evidence to incriminate myself. The liquor cabinet was also more or less hidden behind a wooden panel. You wouldn't know it was there unless you already knew it was there. If you know, you know, you know? How the hell would someone who had broken in know it was there? There were bloodstains found in the whiskey which belonged to both victims, but the police failed to collect proper samples from it. One job. The servants of the Talwars were told to clean up the floors and walls of Arushi's room with soap and water, and her bloody mattress was flung out, landing on the terrace of one of their neighbours. Watch your heads down there, mattress inbound. They're legit removing evidence from a crime scene. Ugh. Between 3 and 6 PM on the day of the murder, some very, very, very suspicious phone calls were made. Phone records show that Rajesh's older brother, Dinesh Talwar, Sushil Chaudhary, a family friend with connections to the police, KK Gautam, retired Deputy Superintendent of Police, and an unidentified number, presumably a burner phone, all began to communicate. Now this was right as the autopsy report was being written. Why would anyone want the autopsy report to be changed, you ask? Well, here is where theory number 1 for the murder comes in. It's believed that these communications were efforts from the family to remove rape from the autopsy report, using their connection to Gautam. Rajesh walked in on his daughter having sex with Banjade, and in a fit of rage at seeing them having sex, killed them both. With rape removed from the autopsy, there would be no motive for murdering them both. With rape in the autopsy, there would be. She was murdered as an honour killing, and Banjade for raping her. A clear as day motive for the crime. Evidence also showed that her vagina had been penetrated and cleaned by someone. Here's theory number 2. Theory number 2 is a bit more far-fetched than number 1. It's believed by some that Rajesh was out cheating on his wife. His daughter confronted him about it, and Banjade blackmailed him, so he killed them both to keep them quiet and avoid any excess stress. You can make your own mind up on this one, on which theory you believe. The case was eventually handed to the CBI. The police done fucked up too many times. It was time for the big boys now. The Central Bureau of Investigation, brackets CBI, are basically the FBI of India. No fucking about here. Upon taking up the case, both of the parents were exonerated, which means clearing them of all blame. Don't ask me how, but nonetheless, we move. There were 3 new suspects, the Talwars' assistant, Krishna Thadarai, and 2 servants, Rajkumar and Vijay Mandal. It had to have been someone on the inside, like literally had to be. There were no signs of forced entry anywhere. The interrogations of the new suspects led the CBI to believe that Aarushi was killed after a failed sexual assault and Banjade was collateral, wrong place, wrong time type of thing. The CBI however treated them like Alex Mason in Call of Duty Black Ops 1, and we can all remember how I did my boy on that one. Not cool. Fuck being strapped up in that chair. Their interrogations were so unethical to arrive at that conclusion, and that there was no real concrete evidence after all the crime scene disruption, so all 3 were released. So why in the hell was Banjade's body just left on the balcony rotting? The apparent motive for leaving Banjade's body in the balcony was to remove it after the investigation, but the media frenzy made this impossible. Eventually, the CBI began to suspect the parents after initially exonerating them. In 2010, after the CBI handed the case to another team, Rajesh was named as the only credible suspect. They however couldn't actually charge him. There was 0 concrete evidence, just theories, and no matter how credible they sound, they're just theories unless backed up by stone cold facts, aka evidence. The case was eventually reopened in 2011, this time with both Rajesh and Nupur as primary suspects. They were going to stand trial this time for their daughter's death. The trial for both of the parents started on the 11th of May 2013. The prosecution offered a rendition of Theory 1 for the explanation of the murder, just slightly different, stating that Rajesh heard a noise so went to his daughter's room to investigate. When he entered the room, he found the pair engaged in sexual activity. On the way, he'd picked up a golf club and clubbed Banjade over the head with it upon entry. When he went to strike him for a second time, he moved, resulting in him accidentally striking his daughter. Nupur was then awoken and came through to investigate what was going on. At this point, both were near death. Both checked Arushi's pulse and found her near dead. They then decided to slit both their throats and fabricate a scene to get away with the murders. They cleaned the house of any evidence they could find, which clearly wasn't very well given the amount of blood left in the apartment. They then left the house, locked the gates from the outside and entered through Banjade's room to fool the authorities. However, as I said before, there was 0 hard evidence to prove a thing, just theories, and despite both of the parents being finally sentenced to life in prison in November 2013, after 4 years, both parents were acquitted in October 2017 and have been free ever since, meaning that the case officially still remains unsolved to this day. The truth is that we will never really know what happened, no matter how reasonable it seems that the events were perceived to happen. Without evidence, there's no proof, nothing solid to say. That's 100% facts, no printer. In my opinion, the parents 100% committed both the murders. I'm not even going to bother bringing up all the evidence that points towards them, because it's frankly too much to go over again, but I'm sure that you'll have your own opinion yourself on that, of who done it. Was it the parents, or was it the other servants and assistant, or someone else? Throw a spanner in the works. Let me know in the comments what you think. Were the parents guilty or not? That was the 2008 Noida double murders. It's one of the most famous unsolved cases in the world, and it's still a hot topic today, given the twists and turns it's taken. Thank you all so much for watching. Please give me a like, and if you like my content enough, even a sub. I upload every Wednesday. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.